The Woman on Platform 8 by Ruskin Bond. It was my second year at the boarding school, and I was sitting on the platform number 8 at Ambala station, waiting for the northern bound train. I think I was about 12 at the time. My parents considered me old enough to travel alone, and I had arrived by bus at Ambala early in the evening. Now, there was a wait till midnight before my train arrived. Most of the time, I had been pacing up and down the platform, browsing at bookstall or feeding broken biscuit to stray dogs. Train came and went, and the platform would be quiet for a while. And then when the train arrived, it would be an inferno of heaving, shouting, agitated human bodies as the carriage door opened. A tide of the people would be swiped upon the nervous little ticket collector at the gate. And every time this happened, I would be caught in the rush and swiped outside the station. Now, a tide of this came and ambling about the platform. I sat down on my suitcase and gazed dismally across the railway tracks. Trolleys rolled past me, and I was conscious of cries of the various vendors. The man who sold curds and lemon, the sweet meat staller, the newspaper boy, but I had lost interest in all that what went on along the busy platform and continued to stare across the railway tracks, feeling bored and a little lonely. "Are you all alone, my son?" asked a soft voice close behind me. I looked up and saw a woman near standing me. She was leaning over, and I saw a pale face, dark kind eyes. She wore no jewels and was dressed very simply in a white sari. "Yes, I am going to school," I said, and stood up respectfully. She seemed poor, but there was a dignity about her that commanded respect. "I have been watching you for some time," she said. "Didn't your parents came to see you off?" "I don't live here," I said. "I had to change trains. Anyway, I can travel alone." "I am sure you can," he said. And I liked her for saying that I liked her also for the simplicity of her dress and for her deep, soft voice and serenity of her face. "Tell me, what is your name?" she asked. "Arun," I said. "And how long do you have been waiting for your train?" "About an hour, I think. It comes at 12. "Then come with me and have eat something." I was going to refuse out of shyness and suspicion, but she took me by my hand, and then I felt it would be so silly to pull her hand away. She told a coolie to look after my suitcase, and then she led me away down the platform. Her hand was gentle, and she held mine neither too firmly or too lightly. I looked at her again. She was not young, she was not old, but she must have been over 30. I think she would have been looked much same. She took me into the station dining room, ordered tea and samosas and jalebis, and at once I began to thaw and take a new interest in this kind of woman. The strange encounter had little effect on my appetite. I was a hungry schoolboy, and I ate as much I could eat in a polite manner as possible. She took obvious pleasure in the watching me eat, and I think it was the food that strengthened the bond between us and cemented our friendship, for under the influence of the tea and sweets, I began to talk quietly, very freely, and told her about my school, my friends, my likes and dislikes. She questioned me quietly from time to time, but preferred listening. She drew me about my family or where I lived, and I did not ask her where she lived. I expected, I accepted her for what she had been to me, a quiet, kind, and a gentle woman who gave sweets to a lonely boy on the railway platform. About in half an hour, we left the dining room and began walking back along the platform. An engine was shutting up and down beside platform number 8, and as it is approached, a boy leapt off the platform and ran across the rails, taking a shortcut to the next platform. He was at a safe distance from the engine, and there was no danger unless he had fallen. But as he leapt across the rails, the woman clenched my arms. Her fingers dug into my flesh, and I winced with pain. I caught her fingers and looked at her, and I saw spasms of pain and fear and sadness pass across her face. She watched the boy as he climbed other platform, and it was not until he had disappeared in the crowd that she relaxed her hold on my arm. She smiled at me reassuringly and took my hand again, but her fingers trampled against mine. He was all right, I said, feeling that it was she who needed the reassurance. She smiled gratefully at me and pressed my hand. We walked together in silence until we reached the place where I had left my suitcase. One of my school fellows, Satish, a boy about in my age, had turned up with his mother. "Hello, Arjun," he called. "The train's coming in the late as usual. Did you know we have a new headmaster this year?" We shook hands, and then he turned to his mother and said, "This is Arun, mother. He is my friend and the best bowler in the class." "I am glad to know that," said his Satish mother, a large imposing woman who wore spectacles. She looked at the woman who led my hand and said, "And I suppose you are Arun's mother?" I opened my mouth to make some explanation, but before I could say anything, woman replied, "Yes, I am Arun's mother." I was unable to speak a word. I looked quickly at a woman, but she did not appear to be embarrassed at all and was smiling at Satish's mother. Satish's mother said, "It's such a nuisance having to wait for the train right in the middle of the night. But one can't let the child wait here alone. Anything can happen to a boy at a big station like this. There are so many suspicious characters hanging about. These days, one has to be very careful of strangers." "Arun can travel alone though," said the woman discreetly, and somehow I felt grateful for what he was saying. I had already forgiven her for lying, and besides, I take an instinctive dislike to Satish's mother. "Well, be very careful, Arun," said Satish's mother, looking staringly at me through her spectacles. "Be very careful when your mother is not with you, and never talk to strangers." I looked up at Satish's mother, to a woman who had been given me a tea and sweets, and then back to Satish's mother. "I like the stranger," I said. Satish's mother definitely staggered a little, as obvious she was not used to being contradicted by a small boys. "There you are, you see. If you don't watch over them all the time, they will walk straight into trouble. Always listen to what your mother tells you," she said, wagging at a little finger at me, "and never talk to the strangers." I glared resentfully at her. and moved closer to a woman who had befriended me. Satish was standing behind his mother, grinning at me delightedly in my clash with his mother. Apparently, he was on my side. The station bell clanged, and the bell who had been now squatting recently on the platform began bustling about. Here it is comes, shouted Satish, as the engine whistle shrieked and the front lights played over the rails. The train moved slowly into the station, the engine hissing and sending out waves of steam. As it stopped, Satish jumped on the board of lighted compartment and shouted, "Come on, Arun, this one empty!" And I picked up my suitcase and made a dash for the open door. We have placed ourselves open windows and the two women outside on the platform, looking up to us. Satish's mother did most of the talk. "Now don't jump on and off moving train as you did just now," she said. "And don't stick your head out of the windows and don't eat any kind of rubbish on the way." She allowed me to share the benefit of her advice, as she probably didn't think my mother a very capable person. She handed Satish a fruit of bag, a croquet bag, and a big box of chocolate and told him to share with food with me. Then she stood back from the window and watched how my mother behaved. I was smarting under the patronizing tone of Satish's mother, who was obvious thought mine a very poor family, and I did not intend giving the other woman away. I let her take my hands in hers, but I couldn't think of nothing to say. I was conscious of Satish's mother staring at us with hard beady eyes, and I found myself hating her with a firm, unreasoning hate. The guard walked up the platform, blowing his whistle for the train to leave. I looked straight into the eyes of the woman who held my hand, and she smiled in a gentle, understanding way. I leaned out of the window and then put my lips to her cheeks and kissed her. The carriage jolted forward and she drew her hand away. "Goodbye, mother," said Satish as the train began to move slowly out of the station. Satish and his mother waved to each other. "Goodbye," I said to the other woman. "Goodbye, mother." I did not wave or shout, but sat still in front of the window, gazing at the woman on the platform. Satish's mother was talking to her, but she did not appear to be listening. She was looking at me as the train took me away. She stood there on the busy platform, a pale, sweet woman in white, and I watched her until she was lost in the mining crowd.